social media and he's okay, but like, let's just wait and news. Like, that's really alarming shit if you people like me, Whippo, know the guy, you know, and have talked to him, etc. So when I heard that, right, I made a comment that people might think, here's the thing, of all the people in the world, would I just pointlessly bring identity politics into something? No, I'm against that as a principle because it's so often misapplied in society and real problems get covered by a bunch of other people's causes, basically, that aren't relevant, or they just, or what I hate is what's called single factor analysis. You just make it simplistic. You take all the nuance and all the different million factors. But this is one of the few cases where everyone in the West missed it initially. It wasn't until they saw all the Discord comments, they realized what I was implying. Where what I said was, when everyone thought, right, everyone thought initially that the Korean fans were on board with the Western fans. So if you were a Western fan and you think, well, the reason why I don't think Ellis should be a coach is because, you know, he's never been a head coach of a top team and T1's the big org and there's supposed to be a world. Yeah, whatever. It was all about the angle, which, by the way, is totally legit. So, for example, Monty would argue that. He would say, well, I have my concerns, you know, whether he has to demeanor to be a coach. That's a legit discussion. But the Western fans naively thought, oh, well, they're just mad because this is what the Korean fans did. They never said the reason why when they were doing all those, like, public statements to the team. They made it sound like that same thing. Well, it's a prestigious org, and, you know, he's not Korean and he hasn't worked his way up. Whereas like, here's the real elephant in the room, guys. In Korea, they don't fuck with gay people. They don't fuck with them. Now, what they do is, it's 2020, guys. So it's not like they're on some ridiculous shit where, like, the gay people are, like, hiding in underground shelters or something. It's not like some dystopia. What they do is, it's the whole reason why certain laws have to sometimes be addressed for this shit. You can find a million ways not to hire someone. You can find a million ways to remove someone from a job. Like, remember, there's 50 different reasons you were late one day, or, you know, I just didn't like his attitude, or you didn't quite meet the performance metrics. It's like, if you really want to, especially because it's going to be so hard to test, like, well, if you're making a value judgment, like, well, what did he base it on? So basically what they do in Korea is they just, it's like an unspoken discrimination. They just find ways where they just know, like, we can separate these people out, or we can just push them out, or we'll just ignore them if they come along. So the problem is, I would suspect, this is pure speculation here, the Western people didn't get that, because you've already seen that the Western people involved in T1, they're just a bunch of people from America. Like, some of them are involved with, like, Overwatch and stuff. Like, they don't know fucking anything about Korean culture. So they thought naively, once we bought the company, we can do whatever we want. And they didn't get that. Like, there'd been problems like this in the past of Ellis's life when he's been in Korea. Like it wasn't always overt. It would be, like, implied, or it's like, but, like, you'd start to wonder about a person who just, you know, was, like, hostile to you in some way. And it was always lurking under the surface. And I know from being there that in their culture, like I said, they just don't talk about it, but it's sort of known. I mean, if you don't know, Korea is actually, this is something a lot of people don't know. They're going to think, oh, it's going to be like some sort of weird, like, shamanisms, the religion. Like, the number one religion in Korea is Christianity. They had, like, a massive blossom of that in the 20th century. It was, like, the fastest growing religion there. So they're like the old school Christians, where it's like, if you know the Bible, like, it's pretty strict about that shit, isn't it? So they're not going on, like, what your values are if you live in America now, or you went to high school in, like, the last 15 years. They're on some different shit. As they are in every other way. Let's face it, like the practice, the work mentality. And there's the thing you've got to understand about Korea is every positive has a dark side to it as well. So the same guy that becomes the world champion because he practices the most, you don't see that 2 years later, maybe he's burned to a crisp and he's just like, his brain's just gone and it's like, right, time to go join the military because fuck, I can't even play the game anymore. Like I've lost my mind playing a million hours. So the point I was making when I said that tweet was, that was my fear the second I saw this story. Because I was thinking, listen, there's plenty of people could complain about a coach, but like the vitriol that I saw coming up, it's like there's something more there. Like it can't just be that like they don't like this coach. There's been plenty of scenarios where they put someone in position like what? Like mate, did everyone want Zephyr to become a coach? Wasn't everyone just flaming the fuck out of him the whole time? And I was drafts as shit. Like there was something extra behind it. So when we then saw it spill over, this is where the Discord angle is relevant, because when people were on Discord and they weren't trying to put a public face on it and they thought like I'm just a guy on the internet, no one knows me, they were absolutely happy to tell you the real reasons they didn't want him. Yep. And it was because you're not Korean, we'll never accept you. It's because you're gay, we don't fuck with that. And all the insults were themed like that. And so that's actually why the Discord part's even more slimy in that statement. Because in that statement, they also do that thing I fucking hate where it's like, we've taken care of the people who stop this. It's like, bro, those leaks imply that you were telling those mods not to delete that.
Yep.
It's like you're the corrupt police chief who stood there and went, stand down, men. And then when all the crime happened, you were like, I'm going to fire these police. They should have been taking care of the crime. No, you did that. You chose that. So what they do in all these companies, and remember, Korea is like a top-down, super strict hierarchy, whether it's a company, a business, a family, they can do what they do in politics in America, which is when someone gets caught doing something, the top guy doesn't go down. What you do is you look at the hierarchy and you go, what's like the lowest guy that we could fire and blame everything on? And usually behind the scenes, you even tell that guy, like, look, we'll make sure you don't get a prison sentence that's too long. Like, we'll make it as painless as possible, but you have to go though. Someone has to go for this, and it's going to have to be you in the scenario. And you know what? You're also below us in the hierarchy, so fuck yeah. That's basically what they were doing to those Discord mods. Because if you saw those messages, unless they were somehow elaborately faked, they were explicitly telling those people, don't delete it. Even though, as we've now found, they can just delete their fucking whole Twitter at the drop of a hat, but they can't delete those messages. And what people don't get is this is the final point I want to make on this one big topic. It's epic rant. It goes like this. It wasn't a mistake that they weren't deleting those comments. They knew if they deleted those comments and banned people and put that the reason is homophobia or anti-gay sentiment, whatever you want to call it, that actually that would enrage the Korean fans. That would make the same Korean fans who were like, well, what's wrong with that? Like, in Korea, we can just be like that. They would be even more enraged, by the way, and go 10 times harder at the org. So as a result, T1 was in this insane scenario, which you basically can't fix, where the Western side, well, we're totally on the other end. If anyone was super mega epic walk, so now they can't tolerate that at all. But on the Korean side, if you were to apologize for that, they'd go absolutely berserk. So like, there's not even any way to meet in the middle. So what they essentially did was write 5 paragraphs or whatever where they said nothing and sort of went close to saying something and then pulled back and then went to another thing and then pulled back. And so both sets of fan bases, this is what people don't know. Both fan bases are totally unsatisfied with the statements because the joke is you can't like resolve the two positions. I mean, we're already talking about the most mental fans, obviously. I'm sure there's a load of fans in the middle that just have their own opinion on the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just think that for them to not like purely, disown those statements of like homophobia. It's just
easy, doesn't it?
It's such a bad angle for them. And for me, it's just like, why are they so afraid based off their statement? It just feels like they're afraid to lose that like super toxic homophobic / racist part of their fan base. Like, why does that fan base matter so much to them? And that's why, like, I feel like Sanchobies and people are just saying like, shame on you guys, because it's just shameful to not be able to like, at this point, take a stance as your company and like, what are the values of your company? What do you want people to understand about your organization going forward? I just feel like that was the biggest miss.
Shall I tell you a little piece of interesting info again? Like, by the way, I don't claim to be an expert on Korean culture. It's just I lived there for a few years. And also, I've read like a bunch of books that basically were by people who were Korean or lived in Korea for a long time and that were about Korean mind, how the culture works, a lot of interesting stuff. So a little detail I'll tell you, because I actually think Westerners don't understand why the K-pop stan is such a big thing. They think that's really just people who are like, it'd be the equivalent of like the TSM fans who can't stop talking about Bjergsen. It's worse than that, because here you have to understand the way that Korean culture actually works is structured differently. And so as a result, the way that their mind structures their thoughts about relationships are different. And so basically, the reason why the Korean language is incredibly hard to learn is because it has 2 forms in it, right? One is the formal one that you would use to your boss or to your dad, maybe in some certain circumstances, if he's like, it's the equivalent of being like, yes, sir, like they used to in the 1950s in America. And basically, what you do when you speak to someone in Korean is everything you say contains within it a reinforcement of what our relationship is to each other. So, for example, I'm the older brother, you're the younger brother. I'm the boss, you're the worker. I'm the fucking official, and you're just the citizen or whatever. So the problem is this. When they speak like that, there's a constant distance you can't bridge because you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be about you're doing your duty and your part in society, and here's your role. Follow your role. Everyone follows their role. It's like the concept of like a ecosystem. It'll all operate. But then it goes the other way, right? Then when you have the informal language that you'd use with your family, it's like that. It's like the family unit. It's like mother, daughter. Like that's the reason famously why if you're friends with someone in Korea, your relationship is he's your older brother and you're his little. But that's not just like when we say bro. They really mean it. Like they treat it like, right, that's my brother and that's my little brother. And so then the responsibilities come in. So here's what people don't get. What these young fans do is the way that they marketed these pop idols to them is they take them and in their mind, they almost like mentally adopt them as a family member. And they think about that guy, not just because he's brilliant at singing or like fucking sports or League of Legends. They think of it like, that's why you think about even when they post in English, it's always like, I must protect him. I will not allow them to get him. It's like, kill the enemies of them. And you just think, oh, that's just cutesy talk. It's like, that's the way they're thinking of it in their mind. So basically, in this scenario, when they hate on the other guys, thing like that, it's like that's like your enemy. Like you hate that guy and he's part of the other group and you're protecting your guy by doing it. It's like basically it's impossible to understand. Like, I don't even claim to fully understand it as a Westerner, but my point is, if you come in with Western assumptions, you're going to get completely lost. And so there's a reason why they sort of go a bit too far in that shit. Because let's face it, if someone was your brother or someone was super close to you, you might respond that way. I mean, we all defended Ellis in a way that we wouldn't if we just didn't know the guy as much, you know? But the issue is, if you do that with someone you've never met, someone who essentially is just on your TV screen, in the West, we would call that like you've got something wrong with you, mate. Yeah. Like, that's going to be unhealthy. There we go. Unhealthy. There's a safe way to say it, right? You're going to have an unhealthy relationship with someone you don't know and that you've imagined. So, unfortunately, like, that's why people call them stans, because it's like fucking Stan out of Eminem, that song. It's like, mate, you don't know this person like you think you do. And so you have an unhealthy attachment to the idea that you know what's best for him or what he should want or all sorts of imaginary, like a fantasy life. So it isn't as cool, like, as people think. It's like, oh, it's just like when a 14-year-old girl likes a pop singer. But it's like that, but there's adults that are like this. Like, some of those guys writing those comments might be like 25 years old. They might have like a fucking desk job. Like, the joke is they finish like, just going to finish this report. Death to LS. Like, oh, there we go. Just like, mate, that's the same guy. Like, so...
Yep.
There's a dark side, is what I'm saying, in the Korean culture. There's a dark side.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like really pointed in that way. I wanted to get Bwipo involved in kind of like the statements that you released, because it seems like as far as what T1 released, it was kind of it didn't really address anything that you concerned, but or that you were concerned with. But from your angle, I think a lot of it was based off just like his credentials and like his ability to be a good coach. So I mean, how did you like come about like releasing these public statements? I mean, I know that from the Discord angle, I first heard about it from you. I'm not sure where like that originally came from. Like, how did you get involved in the situation, and like how did you realize that something needed to be said to the community?
Well, the first thing was after the leaks, people started like stirring a lot of drama about the list, and like the biggest problem for me was the fact that people don't realize that if you're gonna join a Discord of a professional team and you're in direct contact with players, you're pretty much signed. I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't talk to a single coach that was being considered for my team up until we decided on the one we have right now. Just letting you know. If you're going to get the players to directly interact with coaching staff, generally speaking, that means it's because you're really close to signing them and you really want to sign them, and the only thing you need is the stamp of approval from your players.
Yep.
Now, I don't know how that works in Korean culture or how it works in T1, but
I mean, they're calling him Coach LS, so I mean, he was pretty much signed. But yeah, continue.
In other words, the only and this is coming to the whole stand thing, which is like, for me, like, the culture is so different. But one thing I don't understand is how someone that can be that integrated into a team already reach a point where none of the people in the org defend him. You know, like, yes. I understand the organization making a statement is a thing or not, but like, let's say, I'm going to give you an analogy right now. Let's say Reckless makes a decision that a lot of people don't like because, you know, talking about off-season rumors.
Not alluding to anything. Okay.
Right. If a lot of people give him shit for a decision that is ultimately his, and he's making in his own, like, he doesn't owe anyone anything, you know? Like, he's a free agent. He can do whatever he wants. End of story. So if a lot of people are going to hate him, the first thing I'm going to do is like, yo, remember, he doesn't owe anyone anything, you know? Like, whether he joins Fnatic, G2, or goes to LPL, I don't know. My point is, I'm going to defend him. Which is, to me, strange, that if you're going to have a coach that you've talked to before and you're happy about signing him, like, for example, like, Niski got a lot of shit for like, being rumored to be our mid laner, right?
Yeah, of course.
And to me, it's like, the first thing I wanted to do is like, well, what the fuck is wrong with these people? But the problem with that is that I would have to address why we didn't pick, for example, leaders, which I can. And I was thinking about it, and I'll get into that if you want me to.
Right.
The point I'm trying to make is,
yeah, sure.
The point I'm trying to make here is that when I've integrated someone in my team, I think it's natural to be like, hey, this is why I picked him. Like, I approved of this, you know? So the only reason I can see that isn't wise in Korea is because of these stands, right? Like, you wouldn't want Faker to get death threats, right? You don't want to get your players like to actually, like, their quality of life actually suffers from that. But it's something that I want Western fans to at least understand. Like, even just the Western ecosystem is like, look, this person was pretty much integrated as a coach and was offered a job that was pretty much set in stone.
Yes.
And he's losing that because of factors that he can't influence. Like, the fact that someone proved that they were capable to the point where an organization signed them put him in direct contact with players that then also most likely approved of him, is going to lose his job because of people that he can't influence is straight disturbing. Imagine if I was a player and I would lose my job because I replaced SOAS. Like, that's how I feel, right? Like, imagine if people hated me so much, and I got my fair share of hate.
Yeah, I've no doubt.
Whenever I fucked up and I wasn't as good as SOAS, I was like, oh, we should have kept SOAS, right? And that's one thing, right? But these people had no influence on me being on the lineup, so I didn't care. But the thing is, this whole legacy T1 has, which is true, right? Like, they were the most prestigious esports org.
Of course.
Still are in Korea, and in League of Legends, they still are.
Yep.
But to have that way into something that you can't influence and lose your job because of it, that's just unfair. Like, that's the only word I can use. The people in the org have deemed him competent. That's why he's on the org. Or was. I'm honestly sure what's happening there still. But to then lose that opportunity because fans don't like you or whatever is something that's... This is the main reason why I stepped out about it. Because this is what bothered me.
Yeah, do you blame the org, like, for that wholeheartedly? Because from my perspective, I feel like regardless of what the fans say, like, as an organization, you're the one that makes the fucking call. And if in your mind this is the guy that's gonna elevate you back to, like, world championship form, why are you letting any fans give a fuck about what you say? Like, I never let any fans control what I'm doing with, like, my, like, when I announce a guest on the Crackdown, people were like, oh, this is gonna be a fucking boring. I still did the episode, and people were like, oh, you should try, like, you should tell Thorin to act differently on the Crackdown. Like, I always just tell them, like, you can find a fucking different show, because, like, I'm gonna do what's best for me and, like, what I think is best for the product that I'm putting out. And at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna know more about what's good for myself, my content, my brand, than a random fan that's probably like, maybe watched me 5% of the total time that I've been, like, on the internet or whatever. So as an organization, I feel like that same logic should apply, where if they are confident in their decision making, their ability to analyze what's gonna make their organization great, why would they ever let any fans determine it? Like, do they care that much more about fandom than winning? Because I feel like if you just fucking win another world championship, that's the biggest fuck you ever to all those fans, and you're gonna get all the support anyway. So, like, I just don't understand, like the balance, why in the statements they're so afraid to not, like, put down their toxic fan base, or when they're announcing coaches, they didn't even announce LS, and, like, I'm not sure if he's still going to be working with them in some capacity. I know there's rumors that, he might still be under the organization, but just not, like, publicly, because they don't want to, like, piss people off. I just don't understand like, why they're so afraid of their own fan base, like, what they're like. Yeah, I mean, like,
I don't know if I'm getting funeral flowers to my door. I mean, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for T1 here, and the idea of, like, if he's genuinely hated that much, are you worried to the point that someone will attack him personally, right? Like, that's something I feel like you should consider, especially in a country like Korea. It's like, I'm sure, like, I was in Korea. I toured the country when I was at Worlds at 2018, and you can pretty much get from one end to the other end on a train in a day, not even, a couple of hours. Yep. So if you've got some insane fans running around genuinely threatening LS, like, do you really want to live your professional coaching life in protective custody? Realistically speaking, is that what you're looking forward to? Like, that's the only reason I would imagine that you wouldn't step out and kill off this notion and just be like, I'm announcing LS as my head coach. This is it. It sucks to be you if you don't like it. Like, that's the only reason, is that you're genuinely worried for LS, and the idea of, like, he's gonna receive a personal attack if we actually go through with this. And I don't know whether that's the reason they did or didn't. That's the only reason I can see, because, again, if I'm a player and I'm signing on a team, I don't want to have to live in protective custody, have a bodyguard with me at all times, whatever.
Yeah.
Just to, live my life. Like, that's not something that's very realistic to me. But is that the actual reason?
I don't think so, based on everything else that they've said, right? Like,
go on.
That's what I can see.
Well, I was
that's
just
the only reason I can see.
Yeah, so I agree with that, but I feel like you'd be able to, like, kind of, like, read between the lines and see if that's where the organization came down on things. It wasn't even like they even mentioned LS in this whole statement. Like, it feels to me like they just are so afraid of losing their own fan base that they won't make any statements. Because even if you did, like, decide not to go with LS, and you announce your coaching staff the way that they did it without LS being mentioned at all, you could still put out a statement, like, or just have an attitude where you're very like, I don't know, like you're very obvious with what values you want your fans to have and how you want your fans to react. And it's
you mean as in you don't have to necessarily like condemn them, but you just say, here's what we represent though.
Yes. I feel like that's something that you can easily do. And because they were so far away from that, it makes me feel like they don't care that much about like any of that, because
sure.
I don't even know, like, is LS even safe right now? When I talked to LS recently, I didn't feel like he felt like he was safe. From the conversations that I had with him, it was like very like practical of like, okay, like these are the problems, people are doxing me, like what should we do to try to like resolve like any potential issues that could come up. Like we were like the conversation I had with him, we were legitimately scared that somebody was going to like attack his grandmother. We were talking about like, should we move her somewhere? Like, do we need to get like a hotel? Like that was actually the point that I was at when I talked to him a week and a half ago. And it was very urgent. I mean, it was like, it was during a stream. I turned off my stream immediately. We talked about it. It's like, okay, this is what's happening. What can we do to resolve it? And what we decided on was just like thinking about doing that in the future, but just at least getting a public statement out that like makes at least the Western fans aware of the severity of what's going on, because people didn't really understand that this is how far it was actually going.
I've got a side to this you probably haven't heard, actually, again, because it relates to something from Korean esports specifically. So if you notice, right, there was an update, I'm trying to think where I saw this, where I think this was like one of those things again where maybe the fan club did it or something. You know, there was a thing where like Korean fans like responded to it and they gave like a list of all their complaints. It was like translated on Reddit. And one of the things they said would seem very ominous to a Western person, like, what the fuck? Which is they said that the part that, because by the way, as a very quick aside, probably the most pathetic part about all of this was when people pointed out, like, wow, look at these crazy Korean fans. No one said all Koreans. No one said all Korean fans. Everyone was clearly only talking about fucking nutters saying homophobic shit and they want to kill someone. So then they just decided to like flip the victim mentality of like, wow, as usual, all Westerns being racist to us Koreans. It's like that distraction doesn't work on me, my G. I can see through that instantly. That is some dog shit. So you're not going to get to flip and be like, I'm the victim when you're the ones doing it. It's like, essentially, if we're talking about nutter Korean fans and you go, hey, I'm a nutter Korean fan, well, then you are in that group, aren't you? If you're a normal one, it doesn't include you, you idiot. But anyway, put that to one side. Those types of fans who are getting mad and reversing the dynamic, one thing they said was, like, there were claims that there were death threats sent to LS. If that's true, this should be investigated. And then they put this very ominous line, which was like, and if it was proven that there aren't death threats and that was a lie, there should be consequences or something like that. Now, what people won't know is in Korea, they have very strict laws on like internet comments, believe it or not. You can get arrested. So famously, back in StarCraft 2, the most legendary player who, funny enough, originally came from SKT, Boxer, the most legendary Korean StarCraft player of all time, he had his own StarCraft 2 team in early StarCraft 2 called Slayers, right? Had a bunch of famous players in MMA, a bunch of people you might know. And in this team, right, they had a female player. I actually forget. I think her name was Eve or something. I forget her name, though, so apologies if that's wrong. And basically, the equivalent of, like, Korean 4chan did a bunch of really mean things where they took, like, pictures of her. And I'm just going to tell you straight up, they did stuff like Photoshop dicks on her face and stuff. Like, totally, like, immature schoolboy stuff, but also, like, fairly toxic shit. Like, you know, no one wants to see that on the internet. Involved, and they were like fucking finding motherfuckers and giving them like, I don't know what the punishment was, but they were like tracking them down, and I think you could either get fined or you could get fucking like some pretty extreme shit. So here's one thing, that's what they were implying. They think if the death threats aren't real, that we should like find the people who said they are, but contained within that is the secret to their demise in this topic, because here it goes. Right? We know, we've seen them, that there were really horrible comments, including death threats and homophobic remarks. So by that logic, if T1 the org cared, they would do exactly the same thing. They would track those people down in Korea. They would be punished by the police. They would be fined, whatever. They're not even going to do that, guys. I'm going to go ahead and give you a spoiler. That ain't going to happen. So that's all you need to know. It's like that famous Sherlock Holmes story where the key spoiler here, you're not going to fucking read any of it. You'll watch that dog shit TV show from BBC. Right? In the story, one of the key ways he solves the case is it's called the dog that didn't bark. Because in the story, there was supposed to have been a dog in this area, and he realizes, but wait a minute, if that person had gone past this area, why didn't the dog bark? It's the same thing. It's like, what if that's true? Why isn't SKT just pursuing all these people and just going to get them all shut down? Because the whole premise is they don't want to even send the message they're against that shit. That's why it does all come back to this one topic still. So I know that's like a sort of a side tangent, but it's just an area where people wouldn't realize, like, that shit is in theory serious if they really care about it, and they don't in this angle. Like it's obvious also by the fact not a single person in the org said anything, that they were basically told internally, like, shut it down, nobody to say anything. Everyone says nothing until we've decided what the official statement is. Like, no one could come out like all the Western fans of LS and Friends did and say that. No one said anything until this fucking statement.
You know how much power it would have had if somebody like Faker actually like stood up for him? Imagine if Faker went on his stream and was just like, yeah, like these fans like don't understand like what's best. Like I believe that LS is like gonna help us like get back to like world championship form. Imagine if Faker said that. Everyone would just be like, God has spoken. Shut it the fuck down. Like everyone who's against this move, shut your fucking mouth. Faker has spoken.
Hoping for. Hoping for. You know, like the other end is like the 5% that doesn't, like, sure, 95%, 99%.
It would have impact.
Yeah, sure, of course, but like
a lot of impact.
Even if there's just one or two guys that like lose their shit and like plan an assassination or something, like that's not something you want to deal with, you know. Like, I don't know how extreme these people are.
I have a counterpoint to that though. I'll be very quick on this. Here's my counterpoint. Right? One thing I hate in life is the premise of what you're saying, which is if someone's enough of a nutter, they can now have power over all our lives. We're just puppets to them. So they can make it so that I can't hire someone, I can't play with you, I can't say something. No, here's what you do, and I'm being serious right now. Every human being is responsible for their actions beyond extreme cases, like they have like a lobotomy or something, like they're just not functioning, like they can't, like brain dead. Like maybe in those scenarios, you're not totally responsible. Every human being of normal mental capacity and age is responsible only for their actions, no one else's. So what I do is this: I say a comment, right, that is a reasonable comment, but to someone mentally unhinged, that's the worst thing ever. If that person says, I'm going to kill you, I don't even connect my comment to what they said, because it isn't my comment that made them do that. It's whatever shit's going on in their head, right? So in my opinion, what you do in that scenario is you have to just say, like, people are going to do whatever the fuck they're going to do, but I'm going to live my life the way I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to do things I think are right and I think are correct. And I know what you mean, but the problem is, I think if you even imply that you give into that, you also basically incentivize that behavior. Like, next time there's a move you don't like, we all know what to do. Death threats, like funeral wreath, massive billboard. Like, essentially, we found the fucking formula to just get the orgs to do whatever fans want. So I know what you mean. Like, if it was my friend and I'm talking to him as a friend, I'd go like, look, don't put yourself in danger. Like, it's not worth it for a fucking coaching gig. Yeah, I would do the same. But I also think, like, it's not really like a solution, is it? Like, it's just sort of saying, like, well, let's just not do anything in case nothing's do something. So like, I think it's a tough scenario for everyone. There's no real fucking right answer here, is there?
Yeah.
I mean, on the last part is like the right answer exists, but is it something you want to have to deal with, you know? Because the thing is even though you can have the right answer, like you said, everyone takes things the way they want. Like, they're responsible for what they think. And do you really want to run the risk with your main asset? You know what I mean? Like, you have to look at it that way from T1's perspective, because that's the real reason, isn't it? Like, Faker's the main asset, right? If for whatever reason he loses any type of pull, T1's not going to be very happy about that, I imagine. So I think that's the main reason that they don't want to put him in the spotlight, because, I mean, either that or he doesn't want to himself. So I don't know the person personally. Like, I don't imagine that. I can't even start to imagine what he'd be like. But generally speaking, I think that it's like if Faker doesn't do anything, and then we're talking about Faker mainly here, right? Because the smaller time players, I think they would actually suffer a lot of backlash. Whereas like Faker, I think, is somewhat immune to this. Like, for example, Effort not coming out and apologizing for leaking, and then having this come out is like, that is, in my opinion, a statement that should have came out from a person. Like, hey, like, I leaked this. This is my fault.
Wouldn't they be like blame Lenovo or something like that? You think that would have been fine?
I mean, I don't think they're quite as advanced in leaking strategy over in Korea as in.
They're on the other end of the spectrum from TSM. If anything, TSM's top people won't shut the fuck up even when it does harm themselves. They're giving everything away, aren't they? So, you know.
But yeah, that was the point I was trying to make. It's like, I think an apology from effort, like, hey, this wasn't meant to be leaked, and like there's a lot of drama. Like, you don't even have to address like what actually happened. It's just like, hey, like people weren't supposed to know this, and because they know, a lot of things went wrong that weren't supposed to go wrong, and that's just it. You know, that's the least I expected, at least. But up until this point, dead silence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that you touched on here was just like how Faker is really, because people always talk about, like, all the fans talk about T1 as this historic team, right? Which, sure, like technically it is the historic team, like T1 is SKT, but in reality it's just Faker, right? Like the upper the upper management changed, all of the players changed, the coaches changed. I mean, some of the coaches are coming back, like Bengi's now a coach of their academy team or whatever. The only person that has remained the same is Faker. So the way that like people kind of give them like credit as an organization, where it's like, oh well, like they're a legendary organization, like they're gonna do what's right, that just doesn't work for me, because it's not the same people. So just because they're part of the same organization, it's not like the culture is actually that integrated within the company, where if you join T1, you're just now a T1 organization world championship, like, org builder. Like, that's just not who you are. Mate, so
that's the part people missed. It's not even SKT anymore. It's not like it's this big Korean company that represents, has to like be part of Korean content. It's T1. They even rebranded it. Like, they don't call it SKT anymore. So yeah, I agree with you. It should be a new dawn. Like, you can do things differently now.
Yep, 100% agree. All right, well, I think we covered pretty much everything.
Anyway, okay, the shows, well, yeah, they'll just do a fucking thing. We won't talk about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's crazy over there. Like, just from personal experience. I mean, a small anecdote I wanted to add was when I went to Korea, there's a bunch of homophobia within Korea, and there was somebody who was our like Korean manager. Like, he wasn't really part of the organization, but he was the person that was taking care of us, and he told us that, because we had a player that was gay on our team, or not on our team, it was just part of like our organization out of the people we're sending, and he specifically told us to not make that public. Secret, not make that public knowledge at all. Like, just keep that under wraps. Like it's okay. Just don't tell anyone when you're there. So I just remember like that is actually how the culture is. It is definitely more homophobic than people think.
It's just kept under wraps, like I say.
Yeah. It's not outwardly, but yeah, it's just different. Anyways, the topic that I guess Bwippo touched on a little bit that I thought would be interesting to go into was the leader Niski thing. Obviously, the reports are that Niski has verbally committed to Fnatic. Nemesis is gone, and that's going to be the new mid laner. So obviously, we were not going to go into like definites here, but just like in a hypothetical world, like you guys have to make these types of decisions. Like, how involved are you as a top laner in the decisions that are made for the team? Are you ever like the one that's pushing change? Because like the way that I kind of view is, you seem like kind of, like, I'm gonna do my best, I'm gonna try like the best with whatever teammates I have, like you're kind of just like down with most of the changes that people want to do with the team. Is that actually how you are? Like how heavy are you in approving all the roster changes? That's how you used to be? Now are you more
this year? I think I gave Fnatic more of a headache than than literally our whole roster combined.
Damn, Bwippo demanded Niski. He said, I'm fucking walking. If it isn't Niski, this right here now.
He's like, I'm Belgian, he's Belgian, we're riding or dying.
I'm gonna give you perspective here. Basically, so from my perspective, I believe that Fnatic has a winning formula. 2018 we won. I was barely a part of it. The fact that I was on that lineup and I won proves that we had a working formula. That's my opinion, right? It's that simple. I was 2018, I came in as a rookie, I won spring split, didn't do shit. Summer split, I was on the bench. And then I went to Worlds, and I think at Worlds I actually did something. So there's that. MSI, we made top 4, and I was probably the worst top laner in that tournament. So there's that. And by probably, I mean quite definitely. If you don't count like whatever, like play-ins or whatever you call it, like MSI play-ins or whatever. Yeah. But the main, I'm pretty sure.
TSM didn't go that year, if everyone remembers. So
yeah, it was TL. It was Impact.
Well, I think I got the best of Impact too, but 50-50. He was not that bad. Okay. Point being, the winning formula for me was we have a really strong bot lane. We have a mobile mid laner. It was obviously Caps. He was more than just being mobile, but I think a key part that a lot of people missed is that pretty much all of 2018 up until like the end of 2018 was our bot lane's going to carry the shit out of us.
Playing through bot, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's it. And obviously we had like Caps had his pop-off games. He plays Zoe in spring finals, solo kills perks. But the other games he was playing Karma, and we were just chilling and getting carried. You know, like we were playing Sion, Karma, Sejuani or something. Something in the sort, like, you know, Tristana, Sivir, whatever, and we're getting our asses carried. So to me, it was like being in Fnatic and building around a team that, like, building a team not around that makes no sense to me, right? That's why one of the reasons why you might be surprised here, but like for me, one of the roster, like the roster lineup changes that I was suggesting was to change our mid jungle. And you might be surprised, like, wow, you know, change self-made, are you insane? It's like, no. He's a very strong player individually. He's one of the best junglers in Europe to play selfishly. But when it comes to playing selflessly, I've personally had a very hard time getting him to understand the view of the game that I want him to have in order to play selflessly.
Interesting.
And this is why, like, it was funny to me when you said like you didn't really, or that I sit back and watch things happen as I used to. But I learned that like this ends in me having a team that I don't really like. And then that was the problem I had this last year, is that I didn't feel like our team was connected whatsoever, right? This is not a surprise to anyone. This is not a surprise to anyone, right? And I don't want to have my last year in Fnatic because my 3-year contract's ending with the next year. Ending in another year like this. My mid jungle, like my experience with our mid jungle in Fnatic in the past 2 years has been that they've just been straight dysfunctional. And I'm somewhat sick and tired of it, right? That's why I stepped in and I was looking for, together with, of course, the opinion of my other fellow players. So yes, whilst Reckless did express his opinion on what mid laner we should get, he didn't demand Niski to show up. Let's kill that illusion off immediately. That did not happen. It was as simple as this. I prefer perks, I then prefer Niski, and then I prefer the third option. And it's that simple.
It was the third option leader?
That was Reckless to take. No, it was me.
No way, come on.
It was me playing mid lane.
I actually, yeah, I mean,
Listen,
I feel like that
I know
makes
you're
sense.
trying to find you out the team, mate, but that's just too blatant. Like, you know, keep it fucking realistic. So you went, I either want perks, I want Niski, who's available, or you know what? Fuck it, let Whipple play mid lane. Who gives a fuck at this point? I mean, yeah, I'll definitely be here next year. Yeah, so I care a lot, so I need the 3. That's fine with me.
Actually,
say like, what do you want for dinner? Fucking
no,
like,
I actually suggested
caviar, like a normal meal or some dog shit. It's like, well, I have to take a fucking normal meal. Like, the ridiculous options. What is that?
No, I actually suggested it myself. I wanted to play mid lane this year. I also wanted to play jungle this year.
Why didn't you do it then?
Play bot lane this year. Why didn't I? Because
yeah.
Ultimately the math is simple, right? Like you have to find a top laner that can match to what I'm playing, to the level I'm playing, and then still have to hope that I'm at the level that is as good as someone that you would get normally.
So
right?
much
So
risk.
if you look at Whippo Niski, right? Like let's say you get Broken Blade Whippo, right? Like is that on paper as strong? No, it's not, right? Because well, I'm going to use Worlds as an opportunity to put myself one step above Broken Blade. You can count as many as you like, but I'll just say I'm one step above Broken Blade. And you can imagine that Niski, with the amount of years he has, is going to be one step above me for at least a solid period of time, right?
Yep.
Unless I'm some mid lane prodigy that no one expected me to be. Which, you know, I actually believe that I can be.
That out there. Go on, fair enough. Maybe you are. Maybe you are.
Hey,
Who knows? Could be.
I'm super confident that I would be able to be.
Do you play it in solo queue?
I mean, it doesn't matter. I think it doesn't matter, honestly. I understand how that all has to be played. I see Caps play it every single week. You know, I watch LEC every single week. I watch this guy stream. I watch him play solo queue. I was on the team with this guy. You know, it's not a matter of like, can I do what he does? It's a matter of like, how can I do it consistently? Like that's it. That's the only question I'm asking.
That's my only problem. I sometimes watch Caps and he's like styling on Silas, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play fucking League of Legends. I'll buy it up, and I go, it's this consistency. I can't just consistently do it. That's my problem. You know, maybe tomorrow I'll get him tomorrow.
You know, it's something that. To finish the topic, it's something in 2020, like it's 2020, man. Everyone's been playing this game for 10, like anyone that was wanted to play this game for a long period of time has had the opportunity to grind plenty of hours. No one new into this game is coming in as a professional player in the scene, you know, like 2 years, 3 years. That's plenty of time to look at the best in the world and copy them. You know, everyone's got the hands at this point, right? Like everyone's got the mechanics that has the qualifications to be a pro player. In fact, having the mechanics is now a qualification to be a pro player. You know, that wasn't
unless you're a jungler.
Playing.
Yeah, unless you're a jungler or your support, then the hands start getting a little bit worse. Like
bullshit. If you want to win, you have to. Like, look at Mickey X Hillisang, the core JJ. Like they have a monopoly on
Yeah,
support.
it's actually crazy.
Because they have hands. They have hands in the
Hey,
support role.
all I'm saying is people are just to bring us to TSM real quick. Sword Art's hands are not the best. From watching LPL, like he looked fine at Worlds. His hands are not the best. I think people think that they're getting a different support for TSM than they are. But yeah, you can continue.
We'll see. The point I'm trying to make is that as a professional player, you've got the hands. The only thing you need is the brain, right? Like you need to be able to think. Like you have the whole Abdo thing, the concepts thing. That's a beautiful way of describing what I'm trying to say here. Is you just need the brain. You know, like I always refer to it as the brain. You know, you need to think. You know, I actually understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, when you're doing it. And obviously, you need to be able to do that better than everyone else, right? And that's why Caps is an exceptional player, because the concepts, and I'm going to use that word, he uses to play League of Legends are very abstract, right? Like this guy, you'll catch him roaming on losing 2 waves, you know, like, wow. And then 2 minutes later, he's ahead of you, you know, because he got the roam off. Like he's very good at recognizing when something can and can't happen. But the thing is, you've got 3 years, well, what, it's 4 years now. 2017, maybe not the best year to review Caps footage, but at least 3 years of Caps's footage where you can use and learn from him. All you need is the hands. Like you can extract every single concept this player follows from 3 years of footage. That's just a fact. You can do that, right? You can use what he's done. Faker, the same thing. Like you can use the information that's out there. Like if I were to role swap, I think that the most difficult part about role swapping is for me to find champions that I can reliably play in that role. Which to me is very simple, right? Like, let's say the meta right now in mid lane is Orianna Syndra. Well, I would tell you that, look, into Orianna, I would play Sylas because it's a top laner. I've played Sylas quite a bit. And I would play, I don't know, Victor because it's a champion I used to play as well.
You'll take that matchup?
By the second week, I would take that matchup. This whole thing about like you would take that matchup is like, man, if you've practiced this matchup 50 times and you bust out Victor and you're the only Victor player in your region, do you really think you're going to lose that matchup to someone who's playing on stage that has played this matchup once in the last like 5 years? There's no way.
Sure. I'm just saying the Sylas Orianna matchup where both champions are played quite a bit, and it just, I mean, you were there, right? Like game 2.
I would play it because I'm a good Sylas player, but that's what I'm trying to say, right? Like I'm a good Sylas player, so I'm confident that I can make my champion work. You know, whether or not I'm gonna like get smashed in lane and go down 20 CS. Like I'll tell you what, I don't give a fuck. Like I'll take down minus 20 CS to play a champion I'm comfortable with, and I'm gonna have influence on the game any day of the week. You know, like that's why CS numbers to me, I don't give a shit, man. Like sure, it might get you a nice big paycheck, but I really don't give a like. It doesn't win me the game. You know, having 600 more. Like let me just make this clear. Having 600 more gold, what does that do? Actually, what does it do? Having 600 more gold than your opponent.
It depends when you have the 600 gold. If it's the difference between
at all times.
At all times? Well, I mean, it could be the difference between a completed item and components.
Spike, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it could be like an insane.
Why can't you just like? So in the context of League of Legends, why can't you just delay your fight by one dragon?
Sure, you can. Exactly, you can, but then it would just be like, so for example, in the context of third dragon, it's like, okay, so not fighting the third dragon, then you have soul pressure the entire game. Like, it can matter, is what I'm saying, at least. Like,
sure, of course it can matter.
What means, though, because one of the points he made before about like the Abdo Faker angle is if anyone looked into those threads that they made, and in fact, I posted this on Twitter, so if you're watching this today, it was on Reddit as well. Someone even took some of the concepts of what Abdo Doper said about a Faker game, and he did game 5 of the 2016 finals where it was Samsung Galaxy against SKT. And one of the points basically was, it isn't that Faker's just 1v1 solo killing people. What he's essentially doing is setting up the map with these other players so that they don't even ever, like the other team don't even get a fair fight. So for example, in this scenario, if Bwipo knows he might be down a few CS, well, maybe explicitly he already tells his support to roam up and put a ward there so they know if the jungler's on that side, and then he draws the mid lane. So the mid laner thinks, well, I'm ahead of him in CS, I'm winning the lane. He pushes him into a fight there, maybe his jungler's behind it. Like, in theory, if you did know those concepts well enough, you could get over the 1v1 aspect. Like, it's not like, put it this way, it's not like in basketball, you have to always go one-on-one and beat someone. In Counter-Strike, you don't have to always out-aim someone. You can use teamwork, you can use different concepts. So I get kind of what he's saying here.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the driving reasons why lane swapping and role swapping and basically being a flex player professionally is something that was interesting to me, is because I believe that I'm a top laner. I'm on the opposite side of the map as Hylissang, right? But I personally believe that I have a very strong connection with him as players.
Of course.
Right? Like, as well as friends. But on top of that, like, we can agree on things that we disagreed. Like, we're on the opposite ends of the spectrum, and we can find a way to agree and actually integrate it into our play pattern. And I learned this in 2018 when I was playing bot lane with him. And I just realized, like, what a waste, you know? Like, I was like, what a waste, you know? I could do so much more for this player if I were to playing a different a different
If
role.
you're
I'll be
closer
able
to him on the map.
Absolutely. And that's like the main reason why I wanted to role swap, and that's why I don't mind playing AD carry. I don't mind playing mid lane. I don't mind playing jungle. Like, I don't think that matters all too much. What matters is how you interact in a team, right? Bengi's a great example of this. I don't think anyone looks at Bengi as like, that guy was individually the best player the world's ever seen.
Nope.
Absolutely not. Everyone was like, well, he's what's his redeeming feature? He was the right hand faker. That was it. Or was the
Just
left
did his
hand?
job.
I don't even know at
Yeah,
this point.
perfect.
Just did his job. Exactly. He was by no means exceptional. But because he did his job, he has what, like 3 worlds? Championship?
Yeah.
Is it 3?
Yeah, it's 3.
I believe it's 3, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like,
It is 3.
how is that not proof that you don't need to be the perfect player? You don't need to be faker. You just
Sure.
need the right guy for the job. And
Sure.
you need something to build around. And for me, that was our bot lane. Reckless Hylissang, right? Like, for me, 2018, you know, we won. They were always super strong bot lane. Sure, they had their moments. Hilly has his moments, but I feel like those moments that's power. The fact that you can go on a world stage and you can be a player that performs, but still have so many perceived flaws, right?
Mhm.
That's power. The fact that you can change that, like that's why I think that like my ceiling is nowhere near where I am. Why? Because I'm a professional player. I go to worlds. I have a solid performance. I'm not saying that I was exceptional by any means. I was middle of the pack in a tournament with some really fucking good top laners, I'll tell you that much. And I'm not proud of that. But what I do know is that the fact that I was middle of the pack because of the mistakes I make means that I have way more power than someone like, and I'm gonna throw a couple of NA
Go on.
players under the
Okay,
bus
you're
here.
gonna say Impact.
Solo, Broken Blade,
Yeah.
Impact, sure. Like these players, they didn't have these. Like they had so many glaring flaws that it was like there was no hope, or it was to the point where it's like, you know, like they can't really change much. You know, like there's too much work to be done.
They're
Which
known
for me, it was
quantities.
like,
Yeah.
exactly. For me, it's like, you know what? There's small things I can change that will definitely have a positive influence on my performance and
Sure.
elevate me to the point where I can compete with these world-class top laners, right? And I think that that's what makes me happier role swapping, because I know that if I go mid lane, I'm gonna have the same feeling. I'm gonna play against Caps, and sure, you know, one day he might shit on me. That's fine. You know, I'm going to shit on everyone else, and I'm going to get another chance to play against Caps
All right.
anyway. You know, like you have the thing in with Wonder in this year, actually, 2020 spring finals, right? Like he shit on me. It's true.
Yep.
But I shit on everyone else, or I mean, you can argue I didn't shit on people, whatever, Alfari, blah blah blah. You spin your story the way you like it. I don't give a shit. But the point I'm trying to make here is that I'm good enough to get my shot again. You know what I mean? Like I get another chance always.
Yeah.
And
By the
this
way,
means that I
all the
can
people
elevate
out
my game.
there, the people out there who are really good at making memes, I know you're out there, and we appreciate you, by the way. You do God's work. You never get any thanks. It's thankless work. Here's what I need you to do. Take the classic scene from Dragon Ball Z when those fuckers first arrive on Earth and they're doing the power level thing, and then I want you to dub in all the shit that he just said where you go, that's power. And then, like, he's watching all the other people, like he's watching Solo and that, and their power level's so low on the meter and that. Like, basically, you know what to do. Just go out there and create memes, my children. That's all I want from you. I want to see that at some point in the next few days. Tweet it at me.
Thorn, did you actually see the meme of somebody actually did one of them from this show for Yamato, and Yamato was talking about
really?
that's League of Legends. I don't know if Bobo saw it either,
I
but
haven't seen it.
It was like yeah, like it walks around, like you walk around, you kill all these fucking minions. It makes no fucking sense at all. Like they just run out of the base.
Okay.
It's a perfect League of Legends thing. It actually
Someone's
came
gonna
from the
link me
show.
that. Sounds good.
I'll link you guys after the show. I'll find it. So there's a couple things I wanted to unpack there that you were talking about, Bippo. You were saying that there was like disconnection between your mid and jungle and like the rest of the team. Because for me, when I was watching like the limited amount of voice comms that I can get, obviously I've interviewed you guys I've interviewed almost your whole team on this show before, or just done streams with them. It seems like it wasn't just mid jungle. It's like you and Hylissang have a very distinct way of like wanting to play the game. It seems like you and Hylissang view the game through the same lens. Like when you see certain things happen in a fight, you instinctively both react the same way to it, where it's like, oh well, this cooldown was used, this cooldown was missed, etc. This means that we can just like all in, we can fight. And it seems like it was more like Nemesis and Reckless that were pulling things back. I think Reckless got more on the same page as Worlds went on. I mean, you just saw like how the bot lane synergy was just there. I mean, I think Fnatic had one of the best bot lanes in the entire tournament. But were you ever like worried about just like, well, even if we change our mid jungle, we're still gonna have like not everyone on the same page because Reckless is not like from the same breed as the rest of the team? Is that something that you were considering?
No, because I would like that's what I would be able to like. The thing is the topic that is important to understand there is that we're a team. We would be able to build that from day one to Worlds, right? Like that's the goal of any team. So even though he's from a different breed, you'd be able to fuse each other back together to a point where you have what happened at Worlds, right? Whereas like, sure, Reckless is a different breed, but ultimately he was following on every fight, and then you were fighting together at every point. Right? Like that was my bot lane. Like I'll give you an example. Against Gen G, my bot lane got double killed. Like my bot lane getting double killed is like a miracle, you know? It's like, holy shit, my bot lane got double killed. And I'm not talking about the fact that someone died bot lane. I'm talking about the fact that they both dropped dead. It's like, what? That's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like they rarely committed together. But the fact that they got double killed means that they fought to the death together. And that was like, wow.
It was like nice almost, you know? Like at least they're on the same page.
Exactly. I mean, they just fought like men and died like men, and fuck it, they griefed, whatever, man. Like I don't mind, you know. And sure, like it's on a big stage. I mean, at that point we'd be qualified, but and that's how I feel. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, for me, my perspective is you've got a whole year, and especially if you're gonna sign 3 years on an org, right? You're gonna sign 3 years on an org. What's the point of building for 1 year and then at the end of the year being like, this guy had this bad performance once or twice or 3 times? It's like, I had a multitude of bad performances this year. Like I can count them. I don't have enough hands to count them. Oh, enough fingers. Sorry.
Yeah.
You definitely need more hands. I'm just saying that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna say hands to count them, I can count 3 games in spring finals. That, like,
exactly.
You need a third hand already.
There we go.
Go ahead.
But the point I'm trying to make is that I have multiple bad games, but what I'm looking for is people that are willing to look at that and the good games and be like, I can build from this. That's it. Like, I'd rather have a teammate that has a bad game and, you know, a bot lane that gets double killed because they went all in a situation that they believe that they could be favored in. Then, you know, like, again, I'm going to throw an A under the bus here because why not? Like, it's fun.
Oh, it's
like,
fine. It's welcome on the
TSM,
stream.
you know, like you hit a 5-man sleep and like no one's like, you know what? Fuck it. You know, like, you know what? Fuck it. Like I've never played a game with Lilia where I hit a 5-man sleep, but I saw anyone hit a 5-man sleep. But you better be fucking sure that I would have flashed into 5 people there, and if we all fucking died, I would be like, well, shit, you know, like fuck it, you know. How many times are you gonna hit a 5-man sleep? At least I tried. You know, next time I'll know. Next time I'll be a better player. But the point I'm trying to make is that so many people try to reach the point of perfection when it's like you're never gonna reach that point. Comes back to how me and Hylissang see the game. It's very simple. You know, you throw your Ash arrow at my jungler, and my jungler gets one shot. It's like, well, you haven't got your Ash arrow now. So, you know, you're exchanging spells and tools, health, position. Everything is being exchanged in the moment. And if you don't react immediately, you might miss your opportunity. And this is something me and Hylissang agree with. This is what we do. Like, you throw a volley at me, Hylissang will walk up and hit you for it, right? In laning phase. It's like the most simple thing, right? When you're laning, your support is going to punish the enemy AD carry if he uses a spell on you, or the support if he uses a spell on you. But then when mid to late game hits, a lot of people look for that perfect fight, right? Yes. Or it's like, if the initiation's perfect, you caught the enemy AD carry.
Like a 5-man sleep. Something like that. Like, you know, maybe
something like that.
Yeah, maybe if you hit that, you know, you should go in.
Yeah, but exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, even when a 5-man sleep isn't enough for you to recognize that this is a chance worth taking, that's when it's wrong. And I agree. Me and Hylissang are too trigger happy sometimes, right? Like sometimes it's 29 minutes and Ash throws a volley and we're like, what the fuck? What the fuck's this guy thinking, you know? And
it's like, it's got a 2-second cooldown, Beppo, calm down. Like,
yeah, exactly. All 5, the volley is down.
Exactly. Like
come on.
Exactly. That's something that we're pretty bad at. But the idea is still there, right? Like, if someone commits resources, we like to commit our resources to answer that, right? Like, it's not something that there's not a space we like to give to the enemy team. And I think that's a huge issue that a lot of teams experience. The point I'm trying to make here is that over the course of a year, if I were to be mid laner or jungler for Fnatic, and I would have Reckless and Hylissang as my bot lane, I would be able to work with that, right? I would be able to get Reckless to understand these are the cases where we want to do that. And then the opposite, Reckless would be able to tell us, these are the cases where I don't want to do that.
Yep.
Comes to the problem, our mid jungle was dysfunctional, and most people are like, oh, it's like about the view of the game, but no. I'll give you an example of something that happened this year. Is that and I won't name names, but for example, you know, it's no surprise LS and Nemesis, you know, they hate Renekton. You know, Renekton's a terrible champion.
I love Renekton.
Terrible champion.
I love both those champions.
I know you do. You're a jungler. Self-made loves Renekton too. But the point is that you know, when your mid jungle disagrees on what champion is strong, it's very difficult for me to use that champion because my mid laner thinks it's not even worth, like, my mid laner thinks it's not worth getting my champion ahead because I'm like, again, the point is like, even like I can't even enter those discussions. Like I can't even reach that point because we've already reached a point of so much disagreement and so much like, I don't want to use the like,
yeah, the energy.
I don't know. It's not, I want to use like a bad word for it, but it's not that bad. It's just like, there's so much discord, so much, I don't know, vitriol towards a certain champion that I don't even want to try and like try get someone to understand.
It's gone
like,
too far. You can't pull it back at that point in time.
Exactly. I can't be like, hey, Renekton's good in these situations. It's like, no, Renekton's just a useless champion, always bad, always terrible. And it's like, that's the easy way of doing it, right? And I'm not trying to put words in Nemesis's mouth here. What I'm trying to say is that it's very difficult for a bottom lane, like for example, ours, to be like, hey, we want to play a super lane dominant lane that doesn't scale. When you're playing with a mid laner that thinks scaling is the way, the number one reliable way to win, and you have
got
a
to be on
jungler
the same page, obviously. Yeah, exactly.
Basically, only gives it, like, let me put it this way, like very much stereotype crabs and raptors. Gets his crab, gets the enemy raptors, the game's over. Like, you know how it is.
Yep.
I'm sure you can relate, Dominic.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. There you go. You get 2 crabs and enemy raptors, and then come back and take your raptors. You press B, and the game's over.
Yeah,
like,
if it's second respawn raptors, I mean, the game ends.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, there you have it. You know, and then that very much is
level 5 to level 3.
Exactly. But then, you know, the question is your level 5 to level 3, is that going to matter? Blah, 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 blah. You have a whole discussion that you're supposed to have. And the fact that you can have that discussion means that you can work and get somewhere. The fact that because from square one you disagree, and you can't be fucked to go through from square 1 to square 2 means it's fucked. Yeah, you're stuck at square 1 because everyone, like, you just disagree. And after so many months, it's not something that you feel like getting into.
Yeah, sure.
And
makes sense. Yeah.
That's why our mid jungles were dysfunctional, right? Because from square 1 they disagreed and they never like really fought it out, you know. And this happened for 2 years in a row. This happened with Brox's Nemesis as well as self-made Nemesis. And you can be like, oh, we can blame Nemesis for that. He was the mainstay, right?
Yeah.
You can do that if you want. But
yeah,
ultimately,
Thorn will do it. It's fine.
But ultimately, like, I feel like the junglers are at fault too, right? Like not being able to extend your hand to be like, hey, like I believe you. Like
you have to compromise, right? You have to at least have the discussion.
Exactly. Just be like, you know what? I'll play your scaling, and I'll tell you what feels uncomfortable at that, and you're gonna have to tell me how to avoid that, right? Like if you're like, look, you want me to play Kindred Orianna into Graves Galio? You know, this was a very common situation at Worlds. Not very common, but it happened here and there. It's like, well, yeah, Graves Galio's got the early game, right? Like Galio's gonna push on certain waves, and Graves is stronger than Kindred early game. Also clears faster, so Dominic, I don't know if you can comment on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is.
Yeah, Graves clears faster, and Kindred is supposed to have some advantage in fights depending on rune choice.
Exactly, but if you've got Galio into Orianna, then you're going to lose that advantage. Exactly. So Graves is going to get 2 raptors or two crabs and a raptors, isn't he? That's just something that
exactly.
He's a faster player, he's stronger than you, and his mid laner is stronger than you.
Which I don't fuck with. That just to me that just doesn't make sense. Like that's a philosophy where you would need to be able to explain to me how you're supposed to play the game with Kindred, because Kindred is like a mark-based champion. If you can never get any marks, how are you supposed to play throughout the game? So
well, what I'm telling you is that you've got, I'm going to surprise you here, you've got a whole fucking year to figure it out, man.
Yeah,
sure. A whole fucking year.
So what you have to do is you have to draft, like, you have to have enough pressure in either mid or sorry, in bot or top where you can actually like do something on the map at some point.
I don't give a shit what your solution is, man. I don't give a shit. Like, you want to find this, like, you find yours.
I'm telling you mine.
I don't care. Like, I mean, that's what you think, you know. For all I fucking care, my mid, like, for all I care, the person I'm playing with, like, let's say that's your imaginary mid laner is like, yeah, I mean, I want to play Orianna because this matchup is free and I'm gonna scale. I'm gonna carry alone, and he's like, but I need Renekton top and like fucking Leona Kalista bot because we need side lane pressure. You know, maybe that's their solution. My point is I don't give a shit. You can literally sign me up for a whole week of taking up the fucking arse. And my mid jungler getting completely demolished.
Hey, they don't call him Wide Whippo for nothing, man. Like, let me just say, like,
fanatic. Yeah, he's very weird contract demands, doesn't he?
If you fucking figure it out, I don't give a fuck. You figure out both sides in a week, I'm ecstatic. You figure it out in 2 months, I'm ecstatic. You figure it out at the end of the year, shit, it's better than what I've had.
These speeches are amazing. He should just be the coach, I reckon. That's the role swap you need, mate. These are some next.
But the thing is, like, I've had these
also
speeches
inadvertently. He actually inadvertently explained why they signed Niski. I know you're thinking, Dom. Well, he didn't know. No, he did. What happened is he went in front of all the team and he said, right, guys, I could play mid or jungle. And if I was to play mid, I've been watching Caps for the last 3 years. It doesn't matter if I'm 20 CS down. Like, I'll just play Victor and everything. And then what'll happen is you'll roam over, I'll pick them. And if I was to play jungle, though, like, you'll play this champion. And I don't give a fuck. I'll take it up the arse all week. And then they're like, you know what? We'll take Niski, actually. Like, yeah, we've got him on the phone. He's willing to sign. Like, you know, listen, Whipwood's cool and everything, but you just stay top, bro. Like, we like the way you're doing things up there. Like, you know, maybe let's not get too crazy with this, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like Niski is like actually somebody who is pretty underrated because of like the way that he plays in general. I feel like the community perception towards Niski is like so wrong compared to like what it should be. Like, and when you watch C9's demise, I feel like the person that you should be the least worried about is Niski, based on like how he plays.
I agree with you, first of all, but the second thing is like the only reason people care is because we didn't get leader, man. Like, come on, if there wasn't a different option, people wouldn't give a shit. People was like, oh, you need, and this is the thing, you know, like, Jesus fucking Christ, what's wrong with people? Like, you need to get a mechanical talent to beat Caps, and it's like, bro, the guy has had a fucking monopoly on the LEC for the past 3 fucking years. There's no one that's as good as him, and if there were, they would have already got promoted to a team really fucking fast. That's a fact. Yeah. So why the fuck are you trying to find a mechanical mid laner that can be better than Caps when point is there isn't one? Second point is, why the fuck do you want to beat G2 by contesting Caps? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? Like, really? Like, that's where you want to get your advantages against G2? Really? You want to get a mid laner that's gonna 1v1 Caps and shit on him? Really? That's your advantage? Shit. Last I checked, this guy roams more in the first 10 minutes than any other mid laner in the fucking world. The guy doesn't even try to lane. First of all. Second of all, mechanically, you're not going to be like, that's not going to happen. You don't have it. The guy's gone head to head against pretty much every single world-class mid laner on the planet. Yeah. So you want to get leader and flip it just to see if his Silas is going to beat Caps Akali. So you want to flip the matchup, play Silas Akali Silas.
Also ties into what you said before, mate. Like, here's the thing. I am actually a fan of leader, but not for Fnatic, and here's why. Is if the problem that you assessed earlier was we didn't have the right synergy between jungle and mid, and if we're assuming we're keeping Self mid, leader is not going to be like the perfect synergy for him either. Like, he plays his very specific matchup. He has his own way of playing, his own shot. So in this scenario, like, I might not be a fan of Niski as a mid laner, but if you want someone to help Self mid out, he's basically the perfect mid.
Exactly. And again, if you're looking at winning the LEC, which realistically speaking is Fnatic G2, it's been like that for the past 2 years, right? Like, Selfmade got the better of Jankos, and everyone has the general idea that Selfmade's going to carry games. Jankos probably isn't. Yeah. And that's not to say he can. It's just the way it's gone, right? So why don't you get a mid laner that like locks in Galio and is happy about it? It's like, fuck yeah, let's play some Zoe. Yes. Fuck yeah, let's play some Galio. Let's get some pressure. You know, let's play this game. You know, let's get your 2 crabs. Let's get your Raptors. Rather than someone that loves to lock in Zed, Akali, Kassadin, Silas.
Echo, like, all the way.
Scaling's written all over it, bro. Like, I don't know what melee mids you guys play other than maybe Talon, and even that guy. In a competitive game of League of Legends, melee mids don't do shit. Yep. You're a jungler. You can attest to that. No, they don't do shit. Like, you're playing a melee mid against a control mage, and you don't have a mid laner until level 6, and that's the point, right? And after level 6, it's not even about mid 1v1 anymore. It's mid jungle, isn't it?
Yep.
So if the enemy jungler is 2 levels up on you, you're just gonna be like, well, thanks for picking Kassadin, bro. I hope you're gonna hit the level 11 because I'm gonna go farm my Raptors instead of contest mid. Fuck you. And then if enemy jungler that's 2 levels up on you, is just gonna walk in and piss all over you, and then what are you gonna do?
Yep, they're just gonna roam bot and kill your bot lane and the game ends. So,
I mean, you're gonna hope the game doesn't end. But the point I'm trying to make is that why, and again, it is relevant. Like, I am mentioning all these melee mids because the guy in his career, he's played like what, 4 other champions?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the argument, right? Like, that's the argument that other people are bringing me, because I've said the same exact thing where I'm like, I don't know how good leader would be. So I mean, he plays Lucian obviously, which is like permaban. So I don't really.
Plays Azir, played Rise, and played Galio. That's what I saw from the last 50 matches he's played. So, like, in the last 50 matches, if he's only played melee mids or those 4 champions, I'm not saying that he can't learn them. What I'm saying is the fact that he's not been willing to means that he's clearly not interested in what the meta is, right? Like, come on,
I've got a point I can tie in. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. Because I actually, after this show, in maybe like an hour and a half, I actually have an interview with Leader about exactly this topic. Because when I saw he didn't get a team, I asked him stuff like, I said to him, listen, I'll basically just put the hard questions to you. So I'll say like, why don't you play Azir? Why don't you play Oriana? And basically, he even sort of agrees with you. Like, he actually admits if he played at LEC level, he would try playing Azir if it was ever necessary. He would play some of the majors, right? So he even acknowledges that it's not the way to play it. So I think his problem is this. Basically, what he needed to do this year, I always think last year because we're past the season, but technically this year, I know why he played the champions he did. Like, first of all, he has a very unique champion pool. It's not like he only plays like Irelia and Yasuo, like people think. He plays like Silas, Echo, all this other shit. But the problem is that in itself is going to make you look way better at the ERL level because, as you're saying, like the Victor example, like people haven't ever played some of these fucking matchups. Like they're just playing Oriana Azir every game or Corki or something. So, and he also said he would play Corki. But the issue is this. It doesn't matter that you would say you could. People need to see it. And so I think his problem, he was caught in a trap where at the ERL level, he is going to smurf on people in the first 15 minutes if he plays these melee champions that he plays, that he's super good at those matchups on. So he's going to stomp them and think, right, well, I've proven myself. Now they'll pick me up for the big teams. But it's like, basically, you weren't supposed to win that game. You were supposed to audition for the LEC spot, if you get my point. It wasn't about trying to stomp this guy because you're not going to play him in the LEC. So, like, that's where I feel like maybe he, like, didn't understand it. Like, basically, if he'd have played 3 times more games of Azir, I think he played, like, 5 or something. If he'd have played 3 times more, but he'd actually started to look pretty solid on it, and it looked like he didn't have to do all the weird things he does on the melees. He just play like a normal mid. He just does things like save, just farms it out, lets other people carry the game. That actually, as even though it doesn't seem sexy, and it's like, but I'm not stomping, like, I'm not going to get the highlights. That's all people were waiting to see, though. Yeah, so I kind of get both sides of it, you know. Like, I do think he's a very brilliant player. And I think if the right coach, I don't think Fnatic's a team for him. I would have preferred him like a mid-table team or something, or someone just take a flyer on him. If the right coach took him in the right team, I think he could be like a really like strong player from his own unique. Like, he's a bit like what you were saying earlier. He'll take the matchup he's more comfortable in. It doesn't matter if he's a few CS down. He knows what he can do with the champion. But that's the point. Fnatic isn't recruiting just a player that we're gambling on. We're trying to get someone, like you said, to fix a fundamental problem.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the other problem with Leader that people weren't mentioning enough of is just like the jungler he played with, which was Obsess, and Obsess, like from watching the games that we've seen, he seems more just like a tank player than somebody who's picking like Kindred Graves trying to like 1v9 every single game. So I feel like when you're playing these mids that are mainly just picked for prio, the whole reason that you're doing that is to like enable your jungler to really like pop off and like do whatever he wants. When we watch, you know, Showmaker play TF with Canyon, it's the same thing every single time. You enable like every crab, every dragon, whatever. And I feel like because he didn't have that option, just probably for their team, if they're trying to be the best team possible, they're trying to win EU Masters, they want, they want to play the style that they think is going to give them the best chance, and that's just not playing around your jungler as like your main carry, which is like what those other champions do.
No, I'm not saying that he's not capable. Like I mentioned, right? Like for all I know, like they make it work. They talk about it. Like I mentioned, right? Like we're gonna have a week or 2 weeks or a month of scrims where we just eat shit every day because we're trying to make this work as mid jungle. Like that's fine by me. I don't mind. The point I'm trying to make here is that why would I gamble on that when I have Selfmade already locked in? Which again, I did say that I also was looking for a replacement, but ultimately Fnatic wanted to keep him, which is fair enough, you know. Like I understand why you want to keep him.
You think that's gonna harm your relationship with Selfmade at all? You'll be like, hey man, like welcome to
I
Scrims
told him
today.
myself, like what would I have to hide? I told him like, look, I have reckless, like Fnatic has a reckless Hylissang. Like why would I?
We don't need you, motherfucker.
Looking at the next, like, why do I need a jungler that's selfish? Like, why do I need someone that is going to try and carry the game? I need someone that's going to help them
let's
carry.
be real. This isn't NA Dom. Like, Selfmade can handle it. First of all, he's Polish, and secondly, he was literally an L9. Like, he can handle like some mild like criticism. It's not he was even hard flimming. He's like, I actually think his argument was pretty good. He was sort of saying it isn't even just you. It's like the way that the matchup worked, and we'd have to get somebody who fits you. So it's like you even soft sold it. Like you were, that didn't sound too harsh when he criticised him. I know what you mean though. It sounds mad to say it when he's going to play with him next year, but I think of all the people, Selfmade can handle it, mate.
Like, I mean, I wish it was more normal, you know. Like, Selfmade is a really good player. I started with the conversation. He's a good player individually. I've never said that he isn't. Like, I think he has his flaws in in playing selflessly, and I don't think anyone disagrees with me on that.
No, like, that's his whole strength is basically playing selfishly.
He can't play. It's not like he can't play Set or can't play Volibear. It's just the way he plays those champions. Like, I don't feel like it resonates with how I want those champions to be played. You know, like he still plays them in a way where he's very powerful in the game. Like he values his item spikes and he values his level spikes very highly there. And that's something that's ingrained in his playstyle, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And if we end up in a situation where, there's all the rumors about Reckless, about where he's going, if we end up in a situation where Reckless does end up leaving us, then having Selfmade will be a great asset. That's a fact, because for me, one of the reasons why I said, like, I have Reckless and Hillsang is like, them together for me is a powerhouse, strong enough, big enough that I can just get a supportive crew around them.
So you need Broxah back, is what you're saying.
No.
Let's not go that far. That's not silly.
Again, I think Brox is one of those players where you can work with him and you can build that relationship as players. Like you can build from day one, and at the end of the year,
put him on down one, they might be all right.
The point I'm trying to make is he has the personality to build, and that's what I'm looking for. I need someone that was willing to build and be selfless at all. Like at any given point, you can transform from being selfish to selfless, and that's not something that I trust Selfmade with. And that's not a necessarily bad thing. Like shit. All I'm saying is that in a carry meta, this guy is a great option, and in a not carry meta, he's going to have to do a lot of work. And do I need to bet on him to put in that lot of work when I have Reckless and Hillsang, right? My answer was no. That's why I don't think so. I don't think I need to trust someone to like change their view of the game, change the way they perceive the game, how they play the game, when I'm building a lineup around these two players, which is what I think we should be building around, because I'm going to refer to it again. I don't think mid-jungle is the way to win LEC anymore, because G2 has the monopoly on mid-jungle because they have caps. Jankos is obviously very strong too, and it definitely plays into their success, but that's just the truth. So for me, coming into this offseason, my idea was keep Reckless Hillsang, find mid-jungle that really wants to play, like that is willing to play selflessly. And then you might argue, what if the meta changes and the meta is going to change and you're going to need your mid-jungle to carry? And it's like, yeah, well, my bot lane is Reckless and Hillsang are really fucking smart players, and they're very good at playing any style. They're just really fucking good players. So what I was obviously looking for is really fucking good players that can play every style. But the thing is, I need, like, if we were able to do that, we would actually be able to compete for Worlds, right? That's just a fact. But the truth is that finding
it's an opinion, technically, but I know
very
what you mean.
difficult.
Yeah,
it's very difficult. Yeah, sure. That's my opinion. I have high standards.
It's a strong statement for sure.
But the point I'm trying to make is that if there's that many free agents that are capable of that, then we would be able to compete for Worlds far easier, in my opinion. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that finding a player like Niski that has the inclination of helping your bot lane, it's not to say that he can't play Cassiopeia and carry a game, or that he can't play Orianna and carry a game, or Lucian. The point is more, he has the inclination to play for the map. Same with the jungler. We get a jungler that has the inclination of playing for the map. That's why, discussions of maybe you want to trade Selfmade and Jankos. It's like, these are discussions that I was trying to drive in the offseason, in the idea of like, I want to build around these players because I truly believe that this is how we're going to win LEC. And that's not trying to like personally offend anyone. I think the arguments I bring are there. And don't get me wrong, I have my personal issues with people too. Like, for example, like I gave you the professional reasons why I think leaders shouldn't be on my team. The personal one is, bro, if you get a fucking warning and end up getting banned, then you're straight disrespectful to your team.
Too toxic and solo queue, yeah.
Fuck you. Honestly, just fuck you. You're going to get banned for a whole week of my split. Like, don't get me wrong, like it might not have mattered and it might not matter, but I just came off consider. I have 2 splits in my life where it came down to the last week. And if you decide to be too toxic and end up getting banned in that week or the week before that,
or like if you got banned for